To Corbeau, I got the final page, and I've done the roughs, but I also wanted to show you, I did this sketch cover for Usagi Yojimbo, and it's kind of subtle. It's not really, it's not really obvious. I was trying to draw Usagi, but I'm also very influenced by my own character, Rabbit Fighter, so this is kind of a Rabbit Fighter, and there's my preliminary sketch, which this one seems much more Rabbit Fighter to me. I just draw rabbits the way I draw rabbits, you know, when all is said and done. Anyways, really enjoying Usagi Yojimbo lately. Final page of Corbeau. These are the roughs, and they're done. I did this last night while I was watching TV, and I even set up for maybe a future episode. I'm using this trick again. The time dimension always looks like this sort of space with a bunch of clocks. I kind of tried something where I was going to use the numbers in Chinese, but I couldn't remember how to draw a... I'm not sure I did it right. I'm just going to change it back to just numbers. It'll be fine. Alright. Let me get onto this before it goes too far. Layer 2. Really layer 1. I'm gonna do some... Is it possible? It is possible that I already did some of the panel borders. That's how you know you really started. If you've drawn some panel borders already. I wrote 2 pages of a script for Rabbit Fighter. Speaking of Rabbit Fighter coming up, and have it at last. I have a concept. It's a Rabbit Fighter crossover with Iseult, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to do it or what I was going to do. A lot of times I don't really know beforehand. Before I've even done like maybe the first page of the comic, I just have a vague concept in mind, and I want to see where it goes. But in this case, I think I have a pretty good idea, and a really cool twist that starts on the end of page 2. Like, the setup is great. They've got to get to the next, you know, they're trying to escape, and when they ended up in Arcadia, severely wounded, they brought something with them that shouldn't be there, and so now they have to figure out how to get rid of it. That's going to be the basic plot line there. Alright, I don't have... What's this? What is this layer 13? I don't know, so we're going to add a layer on top of that and call that ink. Rename ink. It's not that. Okay. So problematic stuff. I made a bit of a mistake with my opacity and my pencil layers, which is fine. It's fine. But basically it means I have 2 pencil layers, and layer 13, this mystery layer, I could probably just get rid of it. I don't see that it is anything. I'm clicking it on and off. I think it might have been an extra line of dialogue that I never used. Okay, we deleted it. So we're going to start with the air sub getting knocked through the time barrier. As Aura disintegrates, the overpowered dimensional warp tears itself apart, and actually we see her for a second. She's at the center of this massive explosion. I could draw her next. I always like to try and stick with what Joe Prado suggested, which is always do the things that are closest first. And I know that it might make a bigger impact to do a larger ship, but I want to fit the whole ship. And then I want to also show the figure in the back there, and I want that to be the real focus right there. So we've made some sacrifices. I'm not sure this is gonna be a super effective panel, but I hope it is. It's one of those things. I think we could even do some of the ship. The air sub. A tribute to Carl Burgos, unsung hero of comics. He kind of did himself in, I mean, as far as his credibility. I quite like Carl Burgos. But he was the one who created the knockoff Captain Marvel. And not just a knockoff Captain Marvel. There's a series of characters that are knockoffs in that I think it's called, oh, I can't remember what, it's like Marathon Comics or something. I can't remember. But basically, he wanted to come do stuff for Marvel, and they wouldn't give him any rights to his original characters. He's an old-time comics guy from the Golden Age. And so he created this comic which has a knockoff Captain Marvel, a knockoff Doctor Doom, a knockoff Mr. Fantastic. And I don't know if this is just like revenge, or if it's like, oh, I see that those things are kind of popular right now, and I was part of comics back when I think she has to be like blacked out, and that's the reason for that is she's in her supernova form. We also want to draw as much attention as possible to her inside. Eye of the explosion. This is all about the silhouette power here. And I think we need to carve away a little bit at her hips so we can see that it's a female form. And I think it's working. All right. Okay. This is going to be one of those big slashes. It's going to be oops. Let's see what it looks like without the pencils. Okay. Keep it rolling. So the way I'm going to do this explosion is at the center. Kind of this cloud of explosion, of blast. It has to be very random. But then we have to show like an outer ring, which shows kind of the violence of the explosion. Fire and energy just crackling in all directions. We want to make sure that her form really stands out so we know she's in it. Like, we have to know. Alright, let's take a look. I think it's going to be hard to miss her. Okay. Alright. Now, back behind this sort of cloudy form, well, I've got a big sound effect I gotta do here too. Bunch of energy sort of radiating out in all directions. I don't like this radiation. Let's do it this way. Now that, I kind of want to darken it up a little bit. Darken it up. All right. All right, now, if you didn't know, the new Qbert online schedule has been posted. Gavin is once again teaching sequential art, which I'm taking. Maria Sanapo is teaching superhero design, I think, or superhero anatomy. Maybe it's just like superhero anatomy. She's a really great classical artist, and I don't know, I took a couple of seminars from her a couple of years ago. And I'm watching out for my outlines. So with inking, you throw a line. You don't want to go like that. I mean, unless that's the effect you're going for. You have to throw your line pretty confidently. You get something that's smooth. I like parts of this, and then there are parts of it I don't like as much. Getting a good explosion is hard. It's up here. And this point, we're just drawing, almost doodling random shapes. We're just trying to capture the energy coming, out from this thing. Now we're going to capture a lot more energy once we get into the focus lines. And then also, what do we know about this? Well, this is the light source now, obviously. The most exciting thing going on the panel becomes the light source, even if you have just two characters arguing. And if you haven't defined a light source, maybe you're just showing the characters, you're not drawing the background. The light source should be between the two characters. Make the faces lit up and the heads back. Or if you're trying to show a dramatic moment, you can show one of the characters in shadow or something like that. But you gotta be real deliberate about it. Alright, we're gonna get rid of that pencil layer. And that's a beginning. Alright, next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna do focus lines. And I kind of want to do, well, we'll see. I kind of want to do something with darkness around this. I definitely want to keep her as the darkest thing on the panel though, so I might just not worry too much about it. Now when I first designed this page, I had a drawing guide up, but it goes down here, and the reason for that is I was going to do this whole thing would be just one panel, and then I added these two other panels, so I kept scrunching them, and redrawing it. So I have to redo it. We're going to edit the drawing guide, put it in perspective mode, and move the vanishing point right over Aura there. And actually, I'm going to put it on its own layer just in case I mess it up, which is extremely likely. So let's call that one assisted, that one not assisted, and we're only going to go on this one. Okay. It's important to get, we want these to taper. And the larger tapers at the end of it. They can be in groups of 2 or 3. And I'll show you where I learned this from. By the way, if you do there's my comic explosions that I was studying. If you do a study of this cover, Romita Spider-Man Walking Away. It's a very famous comic book cover. This should give you pretty good primer. Let's see if I can find it. Whoops. This is what you're going for, is this right here. So you notice it's not 100%. Like there's flashes of light. And by the way, he's not doing this with a radial like I'm doing it. He's doing it actually kind of like 2 linear ones. Like where's the vanishing point? I mean, it's here. He's just ruling it in. And this is a John Romita Jr. doing the homage, but well, I mostly like the original right here. So you can see it's in little groups with these flashes of light, and I think that's what we want, something like that. Not that I'm as good as any of the Romitas. It may take me a while to actually do this whole thing. But I love the effect, you know, it's one of those things, it's such a cool effect. It always looks cool. Let's see. One thing I can't, I mean, I'm making mine a radial effect because she's at the center of the circular explosion. But I would like to learn that mojo where, you know, he's got it in the, basically just a double ruled. He's not doing it with a single vanishing point. And this is a trick I learned in inking class, is if you want to do your tapers nice, is the point you start is where the small end of the taper is, and you can draw and you just put more pressure on as you go away. Doing it in the other direction where you kind of lay off the pressure is a little bit less predictable. I'll keep those, but I mean, it's a little bit less predictable. This is always predictable. They seem tighter to me. Alright, now remember, we're on a different layer than the ship is, so if we draw through it, it's okay, because when we erase it, it's only going to affect, well, when I turn the layer off, we'll be able to pull it right off. Ooh. It's one of the things you do have to watch out for, is if it suddenly wants to lock onto one of the other rulers. Alright, we're gonna... By that I mean we're doing this radial thing and suddenly it decides it wants to go, you know, vertical or horizontal. And then finally, I think we should do our best, and I haven't done. Let me turn this off for a second. We should do our best to avoid all of the other objects. You know what? Let's make the radials stop short of touching the ship. I think that might be best. Alright. It's starting to look pretty good. Alright, that's feeling pretty good. We want to give a healthy berth. Healthy. A wide... We're going to avoid the explosion. We want this because the negative space you're creating is also, it's almost like that's part of the explosion too. And you create it by not drawing it. It's like playing a theremin here, you know, because you're avoiding it to create this negative space. Meanwhile, your narration boxes and such are going to break, they're going to cover right over the top so that they'll still look really cool, and also the ship will look cool where it is. Alright, we're getting somewhere. Alright, all that's looking good. to erase everything that fell outside the borders. Whoops. And think of some other ways that we can enhance the explosion. One of the ways is we're definitely going to do a sound effect. And we're going to reinforce the effect with our where is it? There it is. You can see it says Crackoom right here. Maybe some more debris flying out. We might even have a couple of bolts of energy coming off of it or something. First, let's get a real tight erase on this panel. There we go. One clump at a time. One idea I had was maybe do some kind of gradient of darkness fading to light, like darkness around the edges fade to light. But you know what? I think the focus lines are enough. They're doing the job. When you have lines, when you have like a lot of lines, a pattern, hatching or whatever, in black and white comic terms, that is gray. You could use the color gray, you could use screen tones, but just using a lot of lines like this is also gray. Well, that counts as gray too. It's looking pretty tight so far. All right. Whoops. This is why I'm pulling the pen off every time I do a clump, because that way if I have to reverse myself, I don't lose all of the ones I already did. Like if I have to undo like a bunch of erasing, it doesn't like bring you back to square one. Now, when I first started doing focus lines, I actually had a little focus line template. It was a transparent graphic of focus lines that somebody had drawn. And I would just literally like paste it in, stretch it to fit the corners of the panel, and then erase wherever in the middle I needed it to focus on, or sometimes I would just tune out the opacity. And it worked kinda. It doesn't look great though. This looks good to me. All right, we're gonna go off on another, just so I don't mess it up, off on another layer and see what it would look like if we did like a beam of energy coming out this way. Something like that, and maybe even a beam of energy coming out this way. I think that looks pretty good. We just need to erase. Oops. Do I need to erase everything or just those? I think we need to erase it all. All right, let's get back into layer 16. Alright, that's looking pretty good. I don't think this looks good. Same thing here. Alright, it's more debris and antimatter. Alright, let's bring back Krakoom. Once again, on its own layer. I could reuse 16 because it's not too close to the other stuff. But let's go ahead. We have the layers to spare. So layer 17, not that bad of a deal. Okay. This is not done with a font. I actually just sort of hand jam this in. So it's on my drawing layer. You can see all the my pencil layer, I guess you could call it. Alright, let's take the pencils back out. Alright, now we see the problem is it is full of beans. Let's see. Oops. Alright, let's see if it'll work. I'm just going to see if I can drop white in here. I could. Alright, so let's do the rest of these like that. We just have to make sure that we aren't leaving any holes, so that when we do a flood fill, it doesn't like suddenly flood fill the entire page. So here, this is an O. O. 3 O's for the win. DFW. An M. And then there's one for the exclamation point, although we don't really need it. We can put one over there as well. And we should be able to see it, yeah, right on its own layer there. Okay. It's a little busy. So now what we need to do is we need to put some black behind it to make it stand out more. You know, once again, we got layers to spare. Let's put on layer 18. Why is it not showing? Oh, because that's white now. Okay, hang on. Wasn't 100% successful. Alright. So we're doing kind of underneath and to the left. Well, if it's underneath and to the left, we don't need that shadow there. So this is not useful, but we do need one on the side of the R. So let's just switch to the R here for a second. It's underneath. And this is kind of like graffiti art, like your idea is to be legible but fast. So the energy is sort of maintained. There we go. And it's actually looking pretty hot right now. Okay, gotta go under, gotta go under. Alright, I think that's it. We're gonna keep going with the rest of this. Please like, follow, and subscribe. I'll probably have this done very soon, so stay tuned for the next comic. And I will see you later.